Welcome back to the Morning Times. As promised, we're joined by Debra Francis. She majored in communications and she's currently a radio broadcaster at iRadio. Good morning, Debra.
Hello.
It's nice
Good morning.
to see you. Aren't
Hi,
you going to try?
So do we handshake? Yeah. Always.
Debra majored in communications and she is a radio broadcaster at iRadio. And you grew up in Matthews Ridge.
Yes.
Debra, we have to get into it, all right? We need to know, first and foremost, what that was like. I mean, I grew up in Georgetown.
Yeah.
Grew up in Georgetown. So this is, I mean, I'm very curious to know, is it different at all? Is it similar? Explain.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Growing up in Matthews Ridge is quite exciting. It's similar to any country area. I think there are misconceptions about the hinterland, but the hinterland really is your regular community neighborhood with some differences, of course. So in Matthews Ridge, it's primarily a mining community and relatively small. It's in region number 1. For those who know the profile of Guyana's map, it's right at the top right hand, closer to Venezuela. However, it's a mining community, lots of miners, because it's mining, and lots of migrants as well. So you have lots of islanders, well, at my time, lots of islanders, lots of persons from other parts of Guyana, lots of coastlanders as well, who would have been based there because not only mining was done at that time, but manganese. They had a manganese company, so lots of persons went there to work. And at that time, too, they had what is the GNS, what was known as the GNS, the Guyana National Service. Probably you're too young to know that. Making me look old now. However, that was based, they had a base in Matthews Ridge. So lots of persons went there, and then they never came back out to the coast. But it was very exciting as part of my childhood. Lots of childhood games, the regular saw out, skipping.
Yeah.
Nice.
At that time, we didn't have the video games and so on, so it was more hands-on, play in the yard, climb trees,
So
swim.
it was better.
It was exciting.
Yeah,
it
I
was
agree.
exciting.
It probably
yes,
was.
it was.
And for people to not have come back out after national service, I'm sure it's a beautiful place.
And it tells you something, right?
It does. It does a lot.
So you definitely had an adventurous childhood.
Yes,
And-
it kept my personality.
Yes. So on a scale from 1 to 10, like how protective were your parents?
My parents were super protective. I believe probably based on the fact that the population was so diverse and the dynamics in the community as well. My parents protected us as much as they can. But for me, because I was a very adventurous kid, very playful as well, and so I got away with my friends and we went playing in another person's yard, or maybe we went doing something else, swimming, even though I cannot swim, believe it or not.
Wow.
But yes, I know it's a misconception too. People think that once you're from the hinterland, you naturally can swim. But it's something that I've tried and never really got the hang of it. But I would accompany them and be part of the gathering. Yes.
How, in growing up and with your transition here, has that, I guess, protectiveness of your parents affected your transition into?
Not at all. I've always been a very outspoken, very outgoing type of person, and my parents fostered that because in my primary school, I was very active at school, so I participated in everything. So I was always outgoing. So coming into Georgetown, to me, what was the greatest change was a culture shock. I was talking to Ashley and I was telling her in the smaller communities, even now, in the country areas as we call them, you see someone on the road, you greet them.
Yeah.
Good morning, how are you? And you have a conversation. In the city, you don't necessarily do that because you don't know them and they don't know you, and the perception is we don't say anything to each other unless necessary.
Yeah, don't speak unless you're spoken to.
Yes.
Which is kind of sad.
Right. And to me, that was the greatest challenge because I was so accustomed saying hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, that sort of thing. But in the city, you just have to keep it straight.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with 10,000 people passing you at the same time, it's a little tricky, no?
Well, sort of, but for me now, I've actually gone into the habit, because I preach it on the radio, that you have to be friendly to people. Sometimes I don't necessarily know someone. I may see you looking at me and I say hi.
Nice.
And sometimes people say hi to me and they don't necessarily know me personally, but I say hi to them and sometimes we end up in a conversation. So that's how it's fostered.
I'm a very cheerful person. So even though I grew up in Georgetown, I would be the girl, hey, good morning, and be the cheerful one, and everyone would just back, oh, yeah,
It's 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, leave me alone.
It's not cheerful time.
Yeah. Right. So after you benefited from the Hinterland Scholarship Program at the SSE level.
Sure.
And when you moved from Matthews Ridge to Georgetown, how did the Hinterland Scholarship Program help you with that transition from there to here?
They have been very instrumental. As you know, perhaps, I don't know if other persons know, but the Hinterland Scholarship Program was set up to enable students who would have excelled at the primary school age to further their education on the coast. And so I was awarded, at that time, I taught my primary school, but I was awarded Christchurch Secondary. So I attended there for 2 years, and I went on to St. Joseph High, and then I went to St. Stanislaus in my 6th form. So the scholarship program really allowed us to, first of all, be integrated in the mainstream. Oftentimes, ideally, students leave their parents and they come to Georgetown. So you're in a new environment, culture again comes into play, and all the other factors. So the scholarship program really enables you to get settled to begin with. And then as you go along, they provide sessions, counseling sessions in my days, to help you through the dynamics of teenage years. So you talk things from drug abuse to peer pressure to sex education, a variety of topics. And those were held monthly, and they were held by year, because the scholarship program caters from first form right on to GTI, the tertiary institution, and I believe now University of Guyana. So they had the general sessions, and then they had sessions per year and by gender as well. So it really facilitated the integration and the sustainability for you to really become and feel part of the society which you're in, and be able to believe in yourself enough to know that you're no greater or lesser and able to contribute in a significant way. And I think that's what has contributed in some way to the person I am today.
That's excellent. I mean, that's such a well thought out program from what you're explaining.
It is. It actually falls under the Ministry of Amber Indian Affairs, I believe now. So they are social workers attached to the program and other professionals helping the kids along as they become part of Guyana.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, they're always part of Guyana.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
but the mainstream.
Correct.
Yes.
That would be the correct terminology. So tell me a little bit about how life you think might have been different if you had stayed compared to what your glamorous life is here in Georgetown.
My glamorous life?
You're a celebrity, come on.
Yeah, you are a radio personality.
Interestingly enough, I don't see myself as this celebrity. For me, being on the radio, being a broadcaster is just part of my passion. It's part of my purpose, my greater purpose in life. And so I feel blessed to be able to do something that I'm passionate about and that makes a difference. And so for that, I'm very humbled. But coming back to your question, my life would have been totally different. To begin with, I may not have been able to complete high school. I may not have been able to excel the way I've excelled academically and professionally, personally, socially, in all aspects really. And maybe I would have been a mother of kids. And maybe, you know.
You should be a mother of kids, right?
Mother of kids, but without being educated, without being independent, and be a housewife. I probably would have been that, or maybe working in some sort of clerical position.
Yeah, so it's a case where you are not educated, so you're bringing people into the world, and you can't necessarily educate them.
It's a vicious cycle.
And teach them all the things that they need to know.
Absolutely, and that to me is one of my passions. You know, I believe people should be given opportunities, and once opportunities are presented, you should grab them with both hands and never take them for granted. And one of the things that I always thank my mom for, my parents in general, they instilled the value of education in us. And they always believe, my mom always says, that she was not educated, so-called educated academically. So she allowed us to be educated, to become the best persons we can be, and for that I'm forever grateful.
Yeah, because when you have education, that's something that you can never take back from someone.
It's
like
a
no one
gateway
can,
to possibilities.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. There are some, what do you think are some of the misconceptions of people from the hinterland?
Oh, there are many misconceptions. I think due to ignorance. You know, a lot of persons are in Georgetown and in other parts of Guyana, and they feel the hinterland, first of all, is bush. You often hear people say, oh, I'm going to the bush. You know, so of course the hinterland is mostly populated by the forest, which is a fact, which is good. But at the same time, there are people, and first of all, the hinterland is a vast area. That's to begin with. And then you have different parts of the hinterland. So you have region 1 to region 10. Every region basically has a hinterland region area attached to it. So for me, based on where you're located, you have similarities, very much so to a Berbice community, an Essequibo community. You know, it's a similar dynamics in terms of country life. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that people are stupid, which I think is just sad, because we're all given the right to life, and we're all given the right to breathe and to grow, and given opportunities again, people would become what they want to become.
Yeah.
Exactly. But because of hinterland sometimes of the dynamics, socially and otherwise, again, sadly, people are left at the primary school level. Sometimes they go on to secondary high school. But outside of that, because again, I don't want to get into it, but the dynamics of the student education system, that sort of thing, oftentimes what you find, people may excel. Like I have cousins who would have excelled 8 subjects at a secondary school in the hinterland, but what do they do from there?
Right.
Do they now go on to university? My cousin was very fortunate because he had us, and he's now able to go on to GTI, and other cousin went on to UG. You know, but what about those who don't have family members? I mean, yes, there are systems in place to facilitate persons having scholarship, but not everyone can have a scholarship. Only the top students are given scholarship.
Right.
So it's a challenge, but at the same time, I think the biggest misconception, coming back to your question, is that people are stupid. But that is not so, because if you go into the community, you can relate to them. They may not be exposed, which is I think one of the factors which limit them to not having the common sense, as you would call it.
Yeah. In what ways do you think that you could give back to your childhood community? Because you've never been back since. So what ways do you think you can give back and contribute?
Right. Well, I haven't gone back because my family would have moved, because I'm the youngest in my family. So because my previous siblings, they would have been in Georgetown as well, attending school. But I've thought about it in terms of going back, because I believe I'm in a space right now where I can be able to influence. And so for me, I've thought about going back physically to begin with, just to see what is, because I'm sure dynamics would have changed. And so it's not easy to just go and take handouts, you know, and I think that's one of the things that I believe too, that in the hinterland, people are affected by. A lot of persons on the coastline and other places take handouts because you feel that's what they want.
Yeah.
But oftentimes that's not what they need. You know, they would accept it, but it doesn't change their life. So for me, it's about going, seeing what's there, and I have a passion for people. So I'd rather go into the schools, the primary school. They have an all-age school, I think, right now. And so talking to the kids and see what their life is like, talking to the parents, and then fill the gap as we go along so that I can make a greater difference and you can have the change that you want and not necessarily have someone feel good for today and tomorrow they're in the same position, because I believe it's more about empowerment. It's about empowering people to become.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to wrap up, but it's so hard to end this because it's so informative. I'm actually learning.
Well, that's a good
why
thing.
I'm so attentively listening. This is fantastic. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for having me.
coming. We need to continue this conversation live again, because I know that a lot of people are going to want to hear more from you. We wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
With your whole radio career. Thank you so much for coming. I know it was really hard to wake up this morning, roll out of bed. But
I'm not a
outside.
morning
Yeah.
person, but you know what? For greater things and for purpose, why not?
Yes.
So I'm happy to
Thank
be
you.
here.
That makes us
Thank
feel
you.
important.
yeah, thank you
you.
so
You
much.
are important.
Guys, remember to listen to Afternoon Delight, and it's on
iRadio Guyana.
iRadio
from
Guyana.
13 hours.
13 hours.
Yes.
So listen to Afternoon Delight. We will have more on the morning times when we come back.